The Netflix live action adaptation of One Piece has finally arrived, and I think a lot of us were expecting the worst, and it blew away our expectations. So, I just want to make a quick video about my thoughts and opinions on the show, and to give some comments about changes that were made for the live action adaptation. Without further ado, come aboard and bring along all your hopes and dreams, and let's dive into Netflix's live action adaptation of Eiichiro Oda's magnum opus, One Piece. Full spoilers ahead for the entirety of the live action show and its manga and anime counterparts. There were clearly a lot of changes made when adapting the show for live action, which can definitely rub some fans the wrong way. I personally felt that the changes from the source material were in good taste and didn't obliterate the story, and there was nothing but respect for Oda's original work shown throughout the show. Instead, it just made the show much more fit for a television medium, while still feeling distinctively One Piece, which is great news for the community of people who love Oda's story and world. A lot of people don't enjoy watching anime, and even more people don't want to read manga, so the introduction of this story through a mainstream medium such as live action television enables a new audience to learn about and fall in love with the story of One Piece. I want to start by talking about the two best characters in the show to me, and that's going to be the two primary candidates for the future Pirate King, Monkey D. Luffy and Buggy the Clown. I made a YouTube short a couple months ago about how much passion Eiichiro Oda showed for portraying Luffy. He has the energy down pat.
So I thought to myself, what is the most important part about Luffy? Well, he has fun, right? So what is my goal here as an actor to embody this character? Well, I want to have fun, and I want to help create a fun environment. So every time I arrived on set, I would blast the John Cena theme song from the car.
I love the final scene in the last episode where he's sitting on the Mary's figurehead, looking towards the sea and his future adventures, and you can see tears welling up in his eyes. This scene was incredibly impactful, and the genuine joy coming off this young man is something to be cherished. Inyaki's portrayal of Luffy is not a one-to-one with the Luffy we know from the anime. The live-action Luffy is a bit more toned down and emotional. This version of Luffy also gives us more quiet moments that we don't usually get in the anime. Him having his heart-to-heart with Zoro, talking to Kobe under the stars, fishing with Sanji. These scenes show us that as much as Luffy influences the people in his life, they also have an influence on him. We're getting a look into why Luffy cares so much about his crew aside from just being told that they're his nakama. His anime style appetite also worked really well on screen. It was toned down to make it seem less cartoonish, but still maintain the appropriate comedic effect and emphasize how important food is to Luffy. As I mentioned in an earlier video, in One Piece, food represents freedom, and freedom is everything to Luffy. Eiichiro Oda brought Luffy to life. I'm so glad they casted this talented actor, and I'm excited to see his take on other famous Luffy scenes in the future. On the other side of the coin, Luffy's Pirate King rival Buggy was a whole lot different from his anime counterpart. While Buggy was menacing in the anime, I think Jeff Ward brought a level of terror and charisma to the live-action pirate clown that improved him by tenfold. It was like Heath Ledger's Joker did a fusion dance with Pennywise, and that creation had a massive inferiority complex. Buggy was not someone you'd like to piss off, but you also see how his insecurities are a major driving force of his malevolence. Showing only the aftermath of the Buggy Ball's destruction and having the fight take place in a circus where the survivors are forced to laugh and clap adds to the fraudulent nature of the clown, and hints at how his entire career would come to be based off unearned fame. I can't praise Jeff Ward's depiction of Buggy enough, and it seems like everyone else who watched it also shares the same sentiment. They're also very sexually attracted to him, which is concerning, but also I'll happily add Buggy to my list of impressive live-action clowns. As for the other characters, I think they were all casted and acted generally well. Emily Rudd kills it as Nami. In her depiction of Nami, she shows that she isn't just a pretty face, and really puts on the display of fear, loneliness, and desperation that Nami felt during and in the time leading up to the Arlong Park arc, which was critical in justifying Luffy and the crew breaking into Arlong Park. I wish she was given more action moments during Arlong Park, since the trailer showed her being with the crew as she confronted the fishmen, but we didn't really get to see Nami fight in many scenes. Sanji is a difficult character to get right. He's very smooth and is affectionate to a cringy degree in the original material. This amorous behavior was significantly toned down to make Sanji feel human and not overly cringy. The only cringe moments was towards the end where Nami denied him a hug, and it was meant to be a comedic moment that made you empathize with the guy, but you definitely felt the secondhand embarrassment. The kicking, in my opinion, looked off in some bits. It's hard to make Sanji's fighting style feel natural, which is weird to say because what he's basically doing is Taekwondo, which Taz Skylar, a black belt in Taekwondo, trained in to prepare for this role. Him calling out his attack name also felt too cartoonish and it didn't really work for me. But I respect the hell out of Taz. The dude trained himself in martial arts as well as culinary arts. The cooking scenes you see here are actually him cooking food. There's an interview talking about how Taz Skylar sometimes cooked for the production team, and there's a cute TikTok of him making food for a gleeful Iñaki, and that really sold me on his portrayal. Now, onto his moss-headed rival, Zoro. Makenyu knows how to use a sword. The sword fight scenes were all glorious. The fight with Mr. 7 gave us some live-action only content that properly introduces us to his skill, and the Mihawk fight was beautifully adapted nearly 1-for-1. Because why mess with perfection? His swords did need some extra time to firm up in the oven though. Side tangent about Mihawk, the dude looked like Mihawk ripped straight out of the anime. They traded his ominous introduction on his floating cross raft for a shot of him destroying Don Krieg's ship and Krieg himself. I thought this change made him feel less menacing than coming out of the fog and slicing his ship in half. However, it was a great change when it came to world building. Instead of telling us what the warlords are and how they work for the world government, they show us this by having Garp recruit him to capture Luffy. His fight with Zoro was a major highlight of the live action show, just like it is in the anime. Let's move on to Usopp. This dude is way too cool. It's hard for me to buy the charismatic Jacob Gibson as a shaky, weak, lying coward that we know from the anime. But I can see why they casted him. Unlike Sanji's charisma, which comes from his gentlemanly charm, Usopp's charisma in the live action comes from his enthusiasm in his stories. We're seeing him in his stories the same way Kaya sees him, full of creativity and joy, even when he lies. He's very fun to watch and a solid addition to the team. I just wish they gave him more time to shine. They took away his Django fight and his moment with Nami at Arlong Park, which were crucial for developing his character. The live action take on Arlong and the fishmen were controversial at best. Some loved it, some hated it, and I personally thought the practical effects were the right move. The face prosthetics and makeup made them feel more natural rather than looking like a large CGI mess of a creature. The only times I think they'll need CGI would be when they're adapting Chopper and the Sea Beasts, which look great in Luffy's flashback. Arlong's actor demonstrated how the trauma of generations of slavery created a monster that enslaved humans using the same chains that were used to enslave his people. It's hard to ignore the political implications when considering Arlong's casting. This is especially evident in his conversation with Nezumi, where the allusions to real-world history and race-based discrimination is not so subtle. The Jinbei name drop was also beautifully done in order to build the world. Nezumi basically called Jinbei one of the good ones. The uncanny way the fishmen look also further emphasized how different they are from humans. The humans considered fishmen to be ugly, a completely different species, one that is clearly inferior by their standards, and so the world government took this as a reason to control them. This adds to the theme of discrimination and prejudice that the fishmen represent. Speaking of the world government, let's talk about the Marines. This is one of the biggest changes done to the story. The three primary Marines, Garp, Kobe, and Hamepo, were all changed quite a bit, and I enjoyed all of their changes. Garp's Scottish accent caught me way off guard. It took me a while, but I genuinely grew to love this version of Garp. He's way more serious, but you can tell he's just as unhinged as Luffy is in the best possible way. The old guy's body was as strong as his sense of justice, and he was very likable. The steak scene at the Bratier was a great way to show off his character, who doesn't get that much screen time pre-time skip. He shares the screen really well with Zeph, which was an interaction I never knew I needed until I saw it. Zeph bribes Garp with a ton of meat, and the two men, past their prime, have a heartfelt conversation about letting the younger generation take the wheel in their respective careers. His final fight with Luffy was the payoff from that conversation with Zeph. Garp lets Luffy pursue his dream the same way Zeph let Sanji go to pursue his. Helmeppo was the character that surprised me the most out of everybody. Somehow, they made me actually like the naked Nepo baby. This is in large part thanks to Aiden Scott's performance. He had the Draco Malfoy sliminess, but once his relationship with Kobe and Garp developed, his justified resolve felt honest and refreshing. I can't believe I genuinely enjoyed watching Helmeppo of all people. The best Marine change to this series has to be Kobe, hands down. From episode 1, I already liked this version of Kobe more than the anime. Maybe it's because I can empathize more with a real person. but I really felt for this Kobe. His gradual shift from weak child to brave marine was organic. I also really enjoyed his match of Go with Garp, demonstrating to both the Vice Admiral and to the audience that he has what it takes to not only be a great marine, but fit to lead them one day. I love that when nobody believed Usopp about Kuro, it was Kobe who put his hand on his shoulder and let him know that he believed him, giving us a glimpse of Kobe's ideas of what the true duty of a marine is. And the reveal of the bounty meant so much more coming from Kobe than it did from Nezumi. Luffy gave him his freedom, and to repay the pirate, Kobe gave him what he's been asking for since the first episode, his face on a wanted poster, cementing him as a legitimate pirate. There are some characters I didn't cover because I thought they just did their job well adapting the characters. Shanks, Kaya, Kuro, Zeph, Alvida, and so on were all very well acted, and I had no gripes with any of them. I'm so incredibly happy that Oda was able to have control over this production. I'm even happier that both the production team and the actors study up on the source material before going into it. It would be a crime not to renew the show for a second season, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you watch the show? What do you think of it? What do you think season 2 of the live action adaptation will look like? How do you think Chopper would look in live action? I'm just hoping they cast Jamie Lee Curtis as Dr. Kureha as the prophecies foretold. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more lukewarm takes, and I will see you all next time.